World War II chaplains, at the beginning of the war, there were only 137 active duty regular Army chaplains when the Pearl Harbor was attacked. By the end of the war, there were almost 9,000 chaplains in place, serving men and women of all different faith backgrounds from all over the world. Chaplains were trained, and each was ordained and trained theologically in their own denomination. And then once they were vetted through the endorsement agencies for each of the denominations, and there were three basic groups. There was Roman Catholic, all of the Protestant faiths, and the Jewish faith. They were vetted through those groups. They given a physical and a psych eval, and once they passed that, they were recommended to the Army, and they went to the chaplaincy school. They had about 480 hours of training in chaplaincy school. And then they were finally assigned to a unit in the combat area. The chaplains were on the front line. They didn't come in after the smoke cleared. They were right there on the front line with the guys. Matter of fact, during the D-Day invasion in Normandy, Chaplain Hall was a paratrooper chaplain, and he jumped from the lead plane behind the lines in France. He was the first American chaplain on German-occupied soil in France during World War II. The chaplain would have jumped with just about everything or if he was an infantry chaplain, would have carried just about everything you see here. If it was a Christian chaplain, he would have had a communion set, and the communion set would have been appropriate to his denomination. It would have been, as it's set up here, it would have been set up for a liturgical Protestant service, that of Episcopalian or Lutheran. Again, the chaplains had to be cross-trained because the chances of you actually encountering a chaplain of your denomination was somewhat remote. The Army's plans were to have one chaplain per 1,000 men, and that wasn't a priest per 1,000 Roman Catholics. It was a chaplain per 1,000 men. So they were cross-trained in the different faiths. To that, the communion set actually has to do double duty also. Again, this is set up for a Protestant service. For our Roman Catholic friends, we turn that around. We have the crucifix or the corpus of Christ on there for Roman Catholic Mass, and then they would conduct Mass with the Roman Catholic boys. Again, they were cross-trained for all of that, and the communion kit would have been carried and assigned by their denomination. In some cases where it was not, actually the U.S. government provided the chaplains with communion sets, and some of the appointments that you see here, the cross or the chalice, actually have U.S. stamp markings on the bottom of them. So they would have been well equipped in the field. The other thing the chaplains had, Army issue, were their scarf or their stole. This is the Christian stole, obviously with the Latin cross, and this would have been the Jewish stole with the tablets, both with the Army eagle emblazoned above them. The chaplains also were protected by Geneva Convention. Almost all of them wore the Red Cross armband. This was a chaplain armband. I've uncovered zero documentation as far as this being worn by any chaplain. It was available through the chaplain's catalog, however. Most of them wore the Geneva Red Cross. Again, the various prayer books for the chaplains, again, that they carried across the different denominations. The government printed millions and millions of prayer books from the U.S. government printing office, and these contained prayers and hymns for, again, Roman Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish faiths, so they could conduct service. During the war, there was about 478 casualties in the chaplains' ranks. About 77 chaplains were killed. Many chaplains died as POWs. There were several chaplains on the Bataan Death March that a couple of them survived. Many suffered and died with the men that they were ministering to. One of the famous paratrooper chaplains is Father Francis Sampson. Many people will recall him from the movie The Longest Day. There was a scene where the chaplain landed in a creek and they retrieved his communion set. Well, in the movie they portray him as a British padre, but in actuality it was Father Sam, and the event actually did happen, and it was Father Sam who was that chaplain. Father Sam had 5 combat jumps, and every time he jumped, he hit some type of water. And the running joke with him at subsequent reunions was "Father, if we jumped in the desert, you would land in a puddle of camel pee." And they used to tease him about that all the time, and he would laugh because every time he landed, he hit water. Holland, he hit a moat, and D-Day, he hit the creek, and others, there were other small pockets of water. It's interesting. He rose to become chief of chaplains in the Vietnam War. And interesting enough, because like I said, he was that Padre that lost his communion set in the movie Longest Day. He was the one that worked at reducing the size and increasing the portability of the communion kits for chaplains in the subsequent wars following World War II. What else? Like I said, and many of the chaplains that were awarded, there were many decorations awarded chaplains throughout the war for their bravery, and again, chaplains did not carry firearms. They had chaplains' assistants, and there's no insignia. There's no their category was a clerk typist, so there's no designation for them until the 1960s actually. And but they would carry the firearm. They would drive the Jeep. They would set up the organ or the field altar or whatever for service for the troops, for the chaplain in the field. Again, brave men. They serve God and country. To this day, if you speak to a veteran and ask them about their chaplain, regardless of his denomination, and he was a good chaplain, they speak of him in very, very high regard. And so that's where we're at with World War II chaplains.